Thanks, Grover. So it's glad to be here today to discuss latest developments with efforts around the country to reduce, flatten, and even eliminate state income taxes, which has been a dominant state policy trend for the better part of a decade now. When we gathered here today 8 years ago for the Tax Day press conference, the first one following the enactment of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, at that time, there was 14 states across the country that either had a zero income tax rate or a flat income tax rate. Fast forward to today, and that number is 25, half the states in the country. Significant progress. In fact, tomorrow in Columbia, South Carolina, the State House there's going to be, I'll be there for a historic ceremonial bill signing for legislation that will move that state from a progressive income tax code with a top rate of 6% down to a flat 1.99% over the course of 5 years. And South Carolina legislative leadership, they deserve a great deal of credit for getting this across the finish line. And not only will it remove 2%, they're going to 1.99. And not only will this remove the dubious distinction South Carolina currently has as it being home to the highest top marginal income tax rate in the Southeast, is will give South Carolina in just 5 years the lowest flat income tax rate in the country. That's the title that currently belongs to Arizona and their 2.5% flat income tax rate. I will note that Arizona Republicans who control the legislature there would like to reduce that rate further, but they're going to be unable to do so until Katie Hobbs leaves the governorship. What's more, the bill that Governor McMaster is going to sign tomorrow in South Carolina establishes revenue triggers that could continue phasing South Carolina's income tax all the way down to zero over time. And mind you, I would like to point out, this is happening in a state, South Carolina, that has had the highest rate of population immigration, domestic immigration from other states as a percentage in the state population, higher than Texas, higher than Florida. As they see other states around them emulating them and copying them, the most sincere form of flattery, lawmakers in no-income tax states are not resting on their laurels, not by a long shot. Rather, they're continuing to find ways to cut taxes and enact other reforms that make the tax and regulatory climates even more attractive than they already are. I'll just highlight a few things going on. Down in Austin, for example, Governor Greg Abbott and Texas lawmakers put on the 2025 ballot last year a constitutional prohibition on state taxation of capital gains, which voters overwhelmingly supported and approved. Earlier that year, last year, Texas lawmakers not only boosted their R&D tax credit, which was scheduled to expire, they boosted it and made it permanent. Governor Greg Abbott is now running for re-election for a fourth term on a 5-part property tax relief package that, if enacted, would make Texas the gold standard for property tax limitation. Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis has enacted a number of tax cuts in recent years, and now he's committed to working to eliminate property taxes on primary homeowners. And then hop over to already no-income tax Tennessee, where just yesterday they enacted the latest REINS Act in the country. Now over a dozen states have a state-level REINS Act subjecting the most costly state regulations to an up or down vote in the legislature. And this follows multiple rounds of business tax relief enacted by Governor Bill Lee and Tennessee lawmakers. Point being, while leaders of many no-income tax states are realizing that their lack of an income tax is becoming less of an advantage, they're acting accordingly and making their tax and regulatory climate even more attractive than they already are. Meanwhile, blue states are doubling down on higher rates, looking to raise income tax rates further on both families and businesses. So while that's unfortunate for individuals and families and employers in those blue states, as Grover likes to say, no state's a total failure. Some just serve as bad examples. And in fact, indeed, the latest census migration data shows that Americans are continuing to vote with their feet, leaving high-tax blue states in favor of low-tax red states. Though tax day is not typically associated with good news, I'm happy to report that on the eve of Tax Day 2026, state income tax rate reduction and even elimination remains the hottest policy trend in the U.S. Maybe only expansion of school choice can give it a run for its money, but it remains the hottest policy trend in the U.S. and that state tax burdens in much of the country are lower than they've ever been.